The pounding on the door came at 11:47 p.m., violent and desperate. The kind of sound that meant someone was running from something worse than the night itself. Jake Carter froze halfway through, tucking the blanket around his daughter Emma. She was already drifting off, her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest, her breathing slow and even. 6 years old, and she still needed him to check under the bed for monsters, still needed the nightlight shaped like a crescent moon, still needed her father to promise her that tomorrow would come and everything would be okay. The pounding came again, harder this time. Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy?" "It's nothing, sweetheart. Probably just someone at the wrong house. Go back to sleep." He kissed her forehead, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and moved toward the bedroom door with his heart hammering against his ribs. 2 years. 2 years of living in this house alone with Emma, of learning how to braid hair from YouTube videos, of burning dinner more often than not, of trying to fill the space his wife Sarah had left behind when a drunk driver ran a red light and took her from them. 2 years of routine, of safety, of building a small, quiet life where nothing unexpected happened, and that was exactly how Jake wanted it. The pounding came a third time, accompanied by a voice. Female, terrified. "Please, please, please, I know you're in there. Please help me." Jake looked through the peephole and his stomach dropped. He recognized her. Not well, but enough. The waitress from Rosie's Diner downtown, the place he took Emma for pancakes every Saturday morning because it was their tradition. Because Sarah had loved their blueberry pancakes, and it felt like keeping her memory alive. The waitress always served their table with a sad smile, always remembered that Emma liked extra whipped cream, always moved a little too carefully like her body hurt in places no one could see. Her name tag said Melissa. Now she stood on his porch with blood trailing from her split lip, her yellow waitress uniform torn at the shoulder, mascara streaking down her face in dark rivers. She was looking over her shoulder at something in the darkness, her whole body shaking. Behind her, at the end of the driveway, headlights appeared. A truck, moving slowly, predatory. Jake's hand was on the deadbolt before he could think about what he was doing. Every instinct screamed that opening this door meant inviting chaos into the careful, controlled world he'd built for Emma. But those same instincts remembered another woman who'd needed help once, who'd been taken too soon, who he'd never gotten the chance to save. He opened the door. Melissa stumbled inside like her legs barely worked, like she'd been running on nothing but terror and adrenaline for so long she'd forgotten how to stand still. Up close, Jake could see more damage. A bruise blooming purple across her cheekbone, scratches on her arms, a tremor in her hands that wouldn't stop. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know where else to go. He's coming. He's right behind me. Please don't make me leave. Please." Jake locked the door, threw the deadbolt, moved to the window, and peered through the curtains. The truck had stopped at the curb. A man got out, big and swaying slightly, drunk or high or both. Even from here, Jake could see the rage radiating off him like heat shimmer on asphalt. "Who is that?" Jake asked, though he already knew. "My husband." Melissa's voice cracked on the word. "His name is Derek. He's going to kill me this time. I know he is. I saw it in his eyes." "Does he know you're here?" "I don't know. Maybe. He was right behind me when I ran. I just kept running until I saw your house, and I remembered." She stopped, swallowed hard. "I remembered you, from the diner. You're always so gentle with your daughter. So patient. I thought maybe you'd be the kind of person who'd help someone like me." The man Derek was walking up the driveway now, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. Jake's mind raced. Emma was upstairs. The stranger was in his living room, bleeding. A violent drunk was approaching his front door. Every choice he made in the next 60 seconds could determine whether his daughter grew up safe or traumatized. "Guest room," he said quickly. "Second door on the right, upstairs. Lock yourself in. Don't make a sound. I'll handle this." Melissa looked at him like he'd just offered her salvation. "Thank you, God, thank you." She disappeared up the stairs just as Derek's fist hit the door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Melissa." The roar came through the wood like a wounded animal. "I know you're in there. Come out right now." Jake took a breath, steadied himself, and opened the door just wide enough to fill the frame with his body. 2 years of construction work had kept him strong, broad-shouldered, solid. He used every inch of that size now. "Can I help you?" His voice was calm, flat, gave nothing away. Derek was bigger than Jake had thought. 6'3", maybe 240, with the kind of muscle that came from manual labor and the kind of belly that came from too much beer. His eyes were bloodshot, unfocused, dangerous. Where is she? Derek's breath reeked of whiskey. Where's my wife? I don't know who you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Derek lurched forward. Jake didn't move, didn't flinch. I saw her running this direction. She's here. I know she's here. I've been putting my daughter to bed, Jake said. Haven't seen anyone. Maybe try the next street over. Derek stared at him, swaying slightly, trying to decide if Jake was telling the truth or if he should just shove past him and find out. Jake could see the calculation happening behind those unfocused eyes, the violence waiting just beneath the surface. You're lying, Derek finally said. You're lying. And when I find out you are, I'm coming back. Have a good night, Jake said and closed the door. He stood there listening to Derek stumble back down the driveway, listening to the truck door slam, listening to the engine roar to life. But the truck didn't leave. It just sat there at the curb, idling, waiting. Jake moved through the house, turning off lights, making it look like everyone had gone to bed. Then he climbed the stairs quietly and checked on Emma. Still asleep, thank God. Her stuffed rabbit had fallen to the floor. He picked it up, placed it back in her arms, and allowed himself one moment to just look at her. His daughter. His whole world. The reason he got up every morning and kept going, even when the grief felt like it might swallow him whole. He couldn't let anything happen to her. Not ever. The guest room door was closed. Jake knocked softly. It's me, Jake. The lock clicked. The door opened a crack. Melissa's face appeared, pale and frightened. Is he gone? His truck's still outside. I think he's waiting to see if you come out. He'll wait all night if he has to. That's what he does. He's patient when he wants to be. She opened the door wider. In the dim hallway light, Jake could see her injuries more clearly now. This wasn't the first time. The bruises on her arms were layered, old and new, a timeline of violence written on her skin. How long has this been going on? He asked quietly. Melissa wrapped her arms around herself. 5 years. We've been married 5 years. It wasn't always like this. At the beginning, he was charming, attentive, told me I was beautiful. Then we got married, and it started small. Checking my phone, asking where I'd been, getting angry if I talked to male customers too long at the diner. I thought it was just jealousy, you know? I thought it meant he loved me. Jake had heard stories like this before, on the news, in documentaries. He'd never thought he'd be standing in his hallway listening to one in real time. When did it get physical? He asked. About a year in. He pushed me during an argument. Said it was an accident. Then it was a slap. Then a punch. Then, her voice broke. Then it was just normal. That's the worst part. It became so normal I started believing I deserved it, that I was doing something wrong, that if I could just be better, quieter, more careful, he'd stop. You don't deserve it, Jake said. No one deserves that. If this story is reaching somewhere deep inside you, if you believe in the power of standing up when it matters most, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happens next will show you that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your door to someone who's knocking. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I know that now. It took me a long time, but I know. Tonight he found texts on my phone from a coworker, another waitress at the diner. She was offering me her couch, telling me I could stay with her if I needed to get away. Derek saw them, and he snapped. He grabbed me by the hair, threw me against the wall, told me if I ever tried to leave, he'd kill me. So I ran. I didn't even grab my purse. I just ran. How did you know where I lived? A few weeks ago, you ordered takeout from the diner. I saw your address on the receipt when I was packing your order. I don't know why I remembered it. I just did. And tonight when I was running, I just kept thinking about you and your daughter, about how you looked at her like she was your whole world. I thought maybe someone who loved his kid that much would understand, would help. Jake looked at this broken woman standing in his hallway and thought about Sarah, about how she'd been taken from him in an instant, how there'd been no warning, no chance to save her, about how he'd spent 2 years wishing he could go back in time and change something, anything, to keep her alive. He couldn't save Sarah, but maybe he could save Melissa. You can stay tonight, he said. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. Restraining order, safe house, whatever you need. But right now, you need to rest. The relief on Melissa's face was almost painful to see. Thank you. I don't even know your name. Jake, Jake, Jake. She tested the name like a prayer. I won't forget this. I promise I won't forget. She closed the guest room door. Jake stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to the sound of the truck idling outside, wondering what he'd just gotten himself into. He checked on Emma one more time, still sleeping peacefully, her small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Then he went to his own bedroom window and looked out at the street. Derek's truck sat under a streetlight like a patient predator. Jake could see the glow of a cigarette in the darkness of the cab, the orange ember flaring and fading, flaring and fading. He was waiting. Jake pulled his phone from his pocket and stared at the screen. He should call the police. That was the logical thing to do. Report a domestic violence situation, get officers here, let professionals handle it. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Melissa had looked at him with such desperate hope. Maybe it was the fear that involving police now might escalate things, might put her in more danger. Maybe it was just that he understood what it felt like to be powerless, and he needed to do something that mattered. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know she's in there. You're making a mistake. This is between me and my wife. Stay out of it. Jake's jaw tightened. He didn't respond, just blocked the number and set his phone down. Outside, the truck's engine finally revved. Derek was leaving. But Jake knew this wasn't over. Men like Derek didn't just give up. They circled back. They waited for weakness. They struck when you thought you were safe. He went downstairs and double-checked every lock on every door and window. The house suddenly felt smaller, more vulnerable. Every shadow seemed like it could be hiding a threat. This was his home, the place where he and Emma were supposed to be safe, and now it felt compromised. But when he thought about Melissa upstairs, thought about sending her back out into the night with nowhere to go and a monster hunting her, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes being a good person meant taking risks. Sometimes it meant opening your door when someone knocked, even though you didn't know what would come through. Sometimes it meant protecting strangers because someone once failed to protect the person you loved most. Jake returned to Emma's room one last time. She was still asleep, still safe, still innocent of the darkness that had just entered their lives. He kissed her forehead and whispered a promise into the quiet room. I'll keep you safe, baby girl, no matter what, I promise. Then he went to his own room but didn't sleep, just lay there in the darkness, listening to the house settle around him, listening for the sound of a truck returning, listening for danger that might never come or might arrive at any moment. Somewhere down the hall, Melissa was probably lying awake too, listening to her own demons, wondering if she'd ever feel safe again. Two broken people under one roof, trying to survive the night. Tomorrow would bring questions, decisions, consequences. But tonight was just about making it to dawn. And as Jake lay there staring at the ceiling, he thought about Sarah. About how she'd always told him that the measure of a person wasn't what they did when things were easy, but what they did when things were hard, when helping cost something. When standing up meant putting herself at risk. She would have opened the door too. She would have helped. And that, more than anything, told Jake he'd done the right thing, even if he had no idea what came next. Morning came slow and gray, the kind of winter dawn that felt more like the night just giving up than the sun actually rising. Jake had maybe slept 2 hours, his body jerking awake at every sound, every creak of the house settling, every car passing on the street outside. Each time his eyes snapped open, he'd reach for his phone, check the security camera app he'd installed last year, scan the front yard for Derek's truck. It was never there. But that didn't mean Jake felt safe. He got up at 6, made coffee with hands that trembled slightly from exhaustion and adrenaline that hadn't fully left his system. The house was quiet. Melissa's door was still closed. Emma would sleep until 7 if he was lucky. He had an hour to figure out what the hell he was going to do. His phone sat on the counter like an accusation. He should call work, tell them he wasn't coming in, first time in 2 years. Since Sarah died, he'd been the most reliable guy on the crew, never missed a day, always showed up early, stayed late. Work was the thing that kept him sane, kept him moving forward instead of drowning in grief. His boss wouldn't be happy, but he'd understand. Probably. Jake picked up the phone and dialed. Carter, this better be good. We're pouring concrete at the Henderson site today and I need every man I've got. I can't make it, Rick. Family emergency. There was a pause. Rick had been at Sarah's funeral, had given Jake 3 weeks off afterward, had never once made him feel like he was a burden. Everything okay with Emma? Emma's fine. It's complicated. I'll explain later. I just need today. Take it. But I need you tomorrow, understood? We're already behind schedule. Tomorrow, I promise. He hung up and stared into his coffee like it might have answers. It didn't. Footsteps on the stairs. Melissa appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing the same torn uniform from last night, her hair tangled, the bruise on her cheek darker now in the morning light. She looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "I should go," she said quietly. "I shouldn't have come here. I've put you and your daughter in danger, and that's not fair to you." "Sit down," Jake said. It came out harder than he meant. He softened his voice. "Please, sit down. Have some coffee. We need to talk." She sat at the kitchen table like a woman waiting for sentencing. Jake poured her a mug, added cream the way he'd seen her take it at the diner, and sat across from her. "Did he come back?" she asked. "No, but he texted me, told me to stay out of it." Melissa closed her eyes. "He won't stop. You don't know him like I do. He'll keep coming back until he gets what he wants. That's who he is. He doesn't give up." "Then we don't give him the chance." Jake pulled out his phone and scrolled through contacts until he found the name he was looking for. "I have a friend, Tom Bradley. He's a lawyer, specializes in family law and domestic violence cases. He helped Sarah's sister with her divorce a few years back. I'm going to call him. I don't have money for a lawyer. He does pro bono work. And even if he didn't, I'd pay for it. This isn't about money, Melissa. This is about keeping you alive." She stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Jake thought about that. About the real answer, the one that sat heavy in his chest every morning when he woke up and remembered Sarah was gone. About how helping strangers was easier than facing the fact that he hadn't been able to help his wife. About how being useful, being needed, was the only thing that made him feel like less of a failure. But he didn't say any of that, just said, "Because someone knocked on my door asking for help. That's enough." Footsteps upstairs, small ones. Emma was awake. "I don't want her to see me like this," Melissa said quickly. "I don't want to scare her. She's already seen worse. She watched her mother's casket get lowered into the ground when she was 4 years old. She knows the world isn't always safe, but she also knows that helping people is what we're supposed to do." Jake stood up. "I'll get her breakfast. You stay here. Drink your coffee. We'll figure this out." He found Emma in her room, already dressed in mismatched clothes that made him smile despite everything. Purple leggings with a green sweater that had a dinosaur on it. Sarah would have laughed, would have gently suggested something that matched better, would have made it a teaching moment about colors and patterns. Jake just let her wear whatever made her happy. "Good morning, Princess." "Morning, Daddy." She hugged him around the waist. "I heard voices last night. Was someone here?" Jake knelt down to her level. "Yeah, someone needed help. A friend. She's going to stay with us for a little while, okay?" Emma's eyes went wide. "A sleepover? Something like that. Is she nice?" Jake thought about Melissa sitting at his kitchen table, broken and terrified but still trying to apologize, still thinking about everyone else before herself. "Yeah, sweetheart, she's very nice. And she's been through something hard, so we need to be extra kind to her, okay?" "Okay, Daddy." Emma grabbed her stuffed rabbit. "Can we have pancakes? I'll make you pancakes." They went downstairs together. Emma saw Melissa and stopped, her child's instinct immediately recognizing that something was wrong even if she couldn't name what. She saw the bruises, the sadness, the way Melissa held her coffee mug like it was the only solid thing in the world. "Hi," Emma said quietly. "I'm Emma. What's your name?" Melissa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm Melissa. It's nice to meet you, Emma." "Why are you sad?" "Emma," Jake started, but Melissa held up a hand. "It's okay." She looked at Emma with something raw and honest. "I'm sad because sometimes people aren't very nice to each other. But your daddy is helping me feel better. He's a very good person." Emma walked over and, without hesitation, hugged Melissa, just wrapped her small arms around the stranger's waist and held on. "Daddy says hugs make everything better. Not all the way better, but a little bit better." Melissa broke, just completely shattered. She held on to Emma like she was a lifeline and sobbed into her dinosaur sweater. These huge, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Jake stood there not knowing what to do, watching his daughter comfort a grown woman with the kind of simple, uncomplicated kindness that adults forget how to give. Finally, Melissa pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart. That did make it a little bit better." Emma smiled. "See? Can we have pancakes now?" Jake made pancakes while Emma chattered about school and her best friend Madison and how they were learning about penguins. Melissa listened like Emma was telling her the secrets of the universe, grateful for the distraction, for the normalcy of a child's voice in a kitchen on a Tuesday morning. After breakfast, after Emma was settled in front of cartoons, Jake called Tom Bradley. "Jake Carter. Been a while. How's Emma?" "She's good. Listen, I need your help with something. A domestic violence situation. Woman showed up at my house last night running from her husband. She needs legal protection, and I don't know where to start. Tom's voice shifted immediately into professional mode. Is she there now? Can I talk to her? Jake handed the phone to Melissa. She took it with shaking hands and disappeared into the other room. He could hear her voice, low and halting, explaining 5 years of escalating abuse to a stranger. Explaining how she'd stayed because she had nowhere to go, no family, no resources. Explaining how last night had been the worst. How she'd seen death in her husband's eyes and finally understood that leaving wasn't about courage anymore, it was about survival. 20 minutes later, she came back, handed Jake his phone. He says he can help. He says we need to file for a restraining order today, that we need documentation of the abuse, photos of the injuries. He says the process will take time, but he can expedite some of it. That's good, that's a start. There's something else. Melissa sat down heavily. Something I haven't told you. Something that makes all of this more complicated. Jake waited. He was learning that the worst revelations always came after the pause, after the person gathered enough courage to speak the unspeakable. I have a daughter, Melissa said quietly. Her name is Lily. She's 3 years old. The world tilted. Jake sat down across from her. Where is she? With Derek's mother. About 20 minutes from here. When I ran last night, I had to leave her behind. Derek would never hurt her, he's never laid a hand on her, but he'll use her. He'll keep her from me. He'll tell everyone I abandoned my baby, that I'm an unfit mother, that I'm crazy, and his mother will believe him because she's believed him about everything else for 35 years. We have to get her back, Jake said immediately. It's not that simple. Legally, she's his daughter too. I can't just take her. Not without a court order, not without proof that she's in danger. Tom says the restraining order won't cover her immediately, that we'd need to file separate custody paperwork, that it could take weeks or months. Weeks or months? Jake's voice rose. You can't be away from your daughter for weeks or months. She's 3 years old. She needs her mother. I know. Melissa's voice broke again. I know. But what choice do I have? If I go there myself, Derek will be waiting. He'll hurt me in front of her, or worse, and I can't put her through that. I can't let her see. She couldn't finish the sentence. Jake stood up and paced the kitchen. Emma's laughter drifted in from the living room, innocent and pure. He thought about what it would do to his daughter to be separated from him, to not understand why, to think maybe she'd done something wrong. 3 years old, the same age Emma had been when Sarah died. An idea formed. Reckless, probably stupid, but an idea nonetheless. What if I went with you? He said. Melissa looked up. What? To get Lily. What if we went together? 2 parents picking up a child. It looks less suspicious, less like you're trying to run. More like, I don't know. Like you have support, like you're not alone. If you're still with me, if this story is gripping your heart the way it's gripping mine, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because what happens next will remind you that heroes aren't born. They're just regular people who decide to show up when someone needs them. That's insane, Melissa said. Derek could be there. He could hurt you. You have Emma to think about. You can't risk yourself for us. I'm already involved, Jake said. The second I opened that door last night, I was involved. And I'm not going to help you escape your husband just to let you lose your daughter. That's not help. That's just trading one nightmare for another. Why would you do this? Melissa's eyes searched his face like she was looking for the catch, the angle, the thing he wanted in return. Why would you risk your life for someone you barely know? Jake thought about Sarah again. About the phone call he'd gotten 2 years ago, the one that said there'd been an accident, that he needed to get to the hospital right away. About how he'd hit every red light, every traffic jam, about how he'd run through those sliding doors and been told he was too late. She was already gone. About the desperate, howling rage he'd felt at the universe for not giving him one more minute, one more chance to say goodbye. He couldn't tell Melissa all of that. Couldn't explain how helping her was the only thing that made him feel like he wasn't completely helpless in a world that took the people you loved without warning. So he just said what Sarah would have said, what she'd always believed. Because it's the right thing to do, and because I have a daughter too. And if something ever happened to me, I'd want someone to help her. I'd want someone to be brave enough to stand up even when it was dangerous. So I'm doing for you what I hope someone would do for Emma. Melissa covered her face with her hands and cried. Not the broken, desperate crying from earlier. Something different, relief, maybe, or gratitude, or just the overwhelming weight of realizing she wasn't alone anymore. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we'll go together. They left Emma with Rick's wife Margaret, who'd helped Jake with childcare emergencies before, and asked no questions when he showed up at her door saying he needed a few hours. Emma hugged him goodbye and told him to be careful, and Jake promised he would be, even though he had no idea if that was true. The drive to Derek's mother's house took 23 minutes. Melissa gave directions in a flat, emotionless voice, like she was narrating a trip to the grocery store instead of a rescue mission. Jake's hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to hurt. He'd thrown a tire iron in the back seat before they left, just in case. He hoped he wouldn't need it. He suspected he might. The house was small, run down, in a neighborhood that had probably been nice 40 years ago before the factory closed, and everyone with money moved away. Derek's truck was parked in the driveway like a warning sign. "He's here," Melissa breathed. "Oh God, he's here. We don't have to do this," Jake said. "We can turn around, come back with police." "No." Melissa's voice hardened. "No, I'm done running. I'm done letting him control my life. If I don't stand up to him now, I never will. And Lily needs to see that her mother fought for her. Even if she's too young to remember, I need to know that I did." They got out of the car, walked up the cracked sidewalk together. Jake could feel his heart hammering so hard he wondered if Melissa could hear it. This was insane. He was a construction worker, not a hero. He built houses, poured concrete, went home to his daughter every night. He wasn't equipped for confrontations with violent drunks. But here he was anyway, because sometimes you didn't get to choose your moments. Sometimes they chose you. Melissa knocked on the door. It opened almost immediately, like someone had been watching through the window. Derek filled the doorframe. Bigger than Jake remembered, meaner. His eyes were bloodshot and furious. When he saw Melissa, something ugly twisted across his face. "There you are," he said softly. Too softly, like a snake before it struck. "I've been waiting for you." "I'm here for Lily," Melissa said. Her voice only shook a little. "I'm taking her with me." "Like hell you are." Derek's eyes shifted to Jake. "And you? I knew you were lying. I knew she was in your house. You think you're some kind of hero? You think you can steal another man's wife?" "I'm not stealing anyone," Jake said calmly. "Melissa left on her own because you hit her, because you terrorized her, because she was afraid you'd kill her. Now we're here to pick up her daughter and then we're leaving. You can let this happen the easy way, or we can call the police and let them handle it. Your choice." Derek laughed, actually laughed. "The police? You think the police give a damn about me and my wife's problems? This is a domestic situation, between family. They'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you. Mind your own business." "Lily is my business," Melissa said. "She's my daughter. She's my daughter too. And she stays with me until you come home where you belong. You want to see her? Come back. Be a good wife. Stop acting crazy. Then you can have all the time with her you want." Jake saw Melissa's resolve wavering, saw Derek's manipulation working exactly the way it had probably worked for 5 years, promising access to her child in exchange for her submission, using Lily as a weapon, as bait. He stepped forward, put himself between Derek and Melissa. "Here's what's going to happen," Jake said. His voice was steady even though inside he was terrified. "Melissa is leaving with her daughter, today, right now. You can accept that or you can make this harder. But either way, she's not going back to you, ever." Derek's face turned red. "You threatening me?" "I'm telling you how this ends. Police are on their way." A lie, but Derek didn't know that. Neighbors are watching. True Jake could see curtains moving in the house next door. "And if you put your hands on either of us, I will defend myself, and I will press charges. So you need to decide right now if your pride is worth a felony assault charge." For a long moment, Derek just stared at him. Jake could see the calculation happening, the same one from last night. How much was this worth? How far could he push? Then Derek's eyes shifted past Jake to something behind them. The old woman who appeared in the doorway was small and tired-looking, probably in her 60s, wearing a flower-print dress that had seen better days. She was holding a little girl with dark curls in Melissa's eyes. "Lily," Melissa breathed. "Mommy." The little girl reached out with both arms. Derek's mother looked at her son, then at Melissa, then at Jake. Something in her expression shifted. Maybe she'd seen the bruises on Melissa's face. Maybe she'd heard Derek's threats. Maybe she'd spent 35 years watching her son become the kind of man no mother wanted to raise. Whatever it was, she made a choice. She walked past Derek and handed Lily to Melissa. "Take her," the old woman said quietly. "Take her and go, and don't come back here." "Ma." Derek's voice was shocked, betrayed. "Enough, Derek." His mother's voice was tired but firm. "I've watched you do this for 5 years. I've watched you hurt that girl, and I told myself it wasn't my business. But I'm done. I'm too old to pretend I don't know what you are." Melissa clutched Lily like she'd never let her go. The little girl was crying, confused, asking questions in that rapid-fire way 3-year-olds do. Jake took Melissa's arm gently and started backing toward the car. Derek moved like he was going to follow. His mother stepped in front of him. "You walk away now," she told her son. "You let them leave, or I call the police myself and tell them everything I've seen. Every bruise, every threat, everything." Derek stood there shaking with rage, his hands clenched into fists. But he didn't move. Maybe his mother's threat worked. Maybe he realized he'd lost. Maybe some small part of him that was still human understood that this was over. Jake got Melissa and Lily into the car, drove away without looking back. In the rearview mirror, he saw Derek still standing in the driveway, his mother beside him, both of them watching until the car disappeared around a corner. Melissa was sobbing in the passenger seat, holding Lily, kissing her daughter's curls over and over. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Mommy's here now. Mommy's not leaving again." Lily just held on to her mother and said, "I missed you, Mommy. I missed you too, sweetheart. So much." Jake drove in silence, letting them have their moment. His hands were still shaking on the steering wheel. He couldn't believe what they'd just done. Couldn't believe it had actually worked. After a few minutes, Melissa looked at him. Her face was streaked with tears, but something had changed in her expression. She looked lighter, like she'd been carrying a boulder and someone had finally helped her set it down. "Thank you," she said. "I don't even know how to thank you. It doesn't feel like enough. You saved us, both of us." Jake glanced at her, then back at the road. "We're not done yet. We still need to file that restraining order, get you somewhere safe, figure out custody arrangements. This is just the beginning." "I know, but it's a beginning. For the first time in 5 years, I have hope that things might actually get better." She paused. "Why did you really do this, Jake? And don't tell me it's just because it's the right thing. There's something else. I can see it in your eyes." Jake drove for a while before answering. Finally, he said, "My wife Sarah died 2 years ago. Car accident. I wasn't there. I spent every day since wondering if there was something I could have done differently, some way I could have saved her. I couldn't, but I could help you. And maybe that doesn't fix anything. Maybe it doesn't bring her back, but it makes me feel a little less helpless. A little less like the universe just takes and there's nothing we can do about it." Melissa reached over and squeezed his arm. "She'd be proud of you. Whoever Sarah was, whatever she was like, I know she'd be proud of what you did today." Jake nodded, not trusting himself to speak. In the back seat, Lily had fallen asleep against her mother, exhausted from crying. Melissa stroked her daughter's hair with infinite tenderness. "There's something else I need to tell you," Melissa said quietly. "Something about Sarah." Jake's hands tightened on the wheel. "What about her?" "I knew her. Or at least, I was there at the end. 2 years ago, I was working in the ER when they brought her in after the accident. I was the nurse who," her voice caught. "I was the one holding her hand when she died. You weren't there yet. You were stuck in traffic, and the doctor said she didn't have much time. So I held her hand and I told her she wasn't alone. She kept saying your name, and Emma's name. She kept trying to tell me something, but she couldn't get the words out. And then she was gone." The car swerved slightly. Jake pulled over to the side of the road, put it in park, and just sat there staring at nothing. "You were there," he said. His voice sounded strange, distant. "You were with her." "Yes. And I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I recognized you at the diner a few months later, but I didn't know how to say anything. How do you tell someone you watched their wife die? But when I was running last night, when I thought about people who might help me, I thought about you, because I'd seen your face that day in the hospital. I'd seen how much you loved her. And I thought if anyone would understand what it's like to lose everything, to need help desperately, it would be you." Jake put his head in his hands. All this time, he'd wondered if Sarah died alone, scared, in pain. And she hadn't been alone. This woman sitting next to him, this stranger he'd helped without knowing why, had been there, had held Sarah's hand, had made sure his wife knew someone cared in those final moments. It was too much. The coincidence, the timing, the impossible connection between that terrible day 2 years ago and this moment right now. It felt like fate, like the universe giving him something back after taking so much away. What was she trying to say? He asked. At the end. What was she trying to tell you? Melissa's voice was gentle. She said, tell Emma, Mommy loves her. Tell Emma to be brave. That's all she could get out. Tell Emma. Jake broke, just completely shattered. Cried harder than he had at the funeral, harder than he had in the 2 years since, because Sarah's last thoughts had been of their daughter, of making sure Emma knew she was loved. And this stranger, this woman he'd saved last night without knowing why, had been the one to receive those final words. Melissa waited until he could breathe again. Then she said, maybe that's why you opened the door last night. Maybe Sarah sent me to you. Maybe she knew you'd help, because that's the kind of man you are, the kind of man she loved. Jake wiped his eyes, started the car. Maybe. Or maybe sometimes things just happen, and we try to find meaning in them afterward. Maybe, Melissa agreed. But I'd rather believe there's meaning. I'd rather believe that good things happen to good people sometimes. That when you do the right thing, the universe notices. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they got back to Margaret's house to pick up Emma, she ran to her father and hugged him tight. You were gone forever, Daddy. I know, Princess. I'm sorry. But we're home now. Emma looked at Lily with curiosity. Who's that? This is Lily. She's Melissa's daughter. They're going to be staying with us for a little while. Is that okay? Emma nodded seriously. Okay, she can share my toys. That night, after both girls were asleep, Jake and Melissa sat on the porch drinking tea and watching snow fall. The lawyer had filed the restraining order. There was a safe apartment lined up, help from a domestic violence nonprofit, a path forward that didn't involve Derek anymore. You changed our lives, Melissa said. You know that, right? You changed everything. You changed mine too, Jake admitted. These last 2 years, I've been going through the motions. Work, Emma, sleep, repeat. I forgot what it felt like to matter, to make a difference. You reminded me. So what happens now? Now you heal, you rebuild, you give Lily the life she deserves, and I go back to my life with Emma. But different. Better. Because now I know I'm capable of more than I thought. Melissa smiled. I hope we stay friends. I hope you'll let us visit sometimes. Of course. Emma and Lily already seemed to like each other. They sat in comfortable silence as snow blanketed the neighborhood. Inside, two little girls slept safely, dreaming whatever dreams children dream. Outside, two broken people who'd saved each other sat together in the quiet, grateful for second chances, for courage found in unexpected moments, for the reminder that sometimes the right thing is also the hardest thing. And somewhere, Jake thought, maybe Sarah was watching. Maybe she was proud. Maybe she was the reason everything had happened the way it had. Or maybe there was no grand design. Maybe it was just people trying to be good in a world that made it hard. Either way, Jake had opened his door when someone knocked. He'd risked everything to help a stranger. And in doing so, he'd found something he'd lost when Sarah died. He'd found purpose, hope, the belief that even in darkness, there were still people brave enough to turn on the lights. And that, in the end, was everything.